And I will say this too, and this is probably the even more controversial part. Sad, but it's true. The only people that I know for a fact, I'm not saying the only ones that have done me wrong, but the only ones that I know for a fact that have done me wrong look just like you. When I was young, I wanted to be this great star football player, and I wanted to be on TV, and just like every kid. And I grew up.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, what if you get all of that? Are you still going to be the same person?
Right.
Does that define you?
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Melanated Midlife podcast, where this time we are treating you to a conversation with Dr. Isaac Chuck Carrier. And this admittedly is an old dear friend of mine, and he is telling the story of his journey from campus teacher and really a country boy that kind of stumbled into education and worked his way all the way up into district leadership. But it didn't stop there, because he has also written a book called Fighting the Good Fight, where he takes us behind the scenes of what toll that entire journey is taking on him and other Black male leaders in the education space. But he's not done with that, because he's going to pivot into even bigger roles in this season of life. And I really want you to take a listen. If you are an educator and you thought about, all the different things that are out there for you as far as your career development is concerned, take a listen to this. It is a very candid conversation of what it's really like and how you need to protect yourself as you go along that path. So take a listen. Dr. Isaac Carrier, we know you as Chuck.
That's right.
I appreciate you being here.
I am so thankful to have the opportunity to be here.
Well, you got some things to share, though.
I got a few things.
You got a few stories, and I make it a point to call out all of my educators. That is my world. Even though I don't physically live in that space anymore, my network is all educators, and I like telling those stories. So we came from similar backgrounds where we were working in the same school organization for a number of years. And so we know a lot of the same people professionally from those beginnings. And you have, sir, kind of gone from this little launching pad and just taken off and done some fabulous things. In particular, the book that we have highlighted right here, Fighting the Good Fight. I want to hear all about the inspiration that goes into it, but let's put that on pause for a second, and I want you to share a little bit of your journey and your background up to this point.
Well, let me say again, thank you for having me. This is indeed an honor for me. We've known each other I guess we were kids, basically.
We were babies.
But we're not there anymore. We got grown kids.
Yes.
That's exciting. So thank you for having me.
Of course.
The whole story of me and education is a story in itself. But I like to say, in my fraternity, we have this thing, many are called, but few are chosen. It's a little on the arrogant side, but in my life as it relates to education, it's true. Like, I had no idea, no desire to be a teacher. I wanted nothing to do with it. Never thought about it. Had done a couple of years of internship with DuPont Agricultural Products, and I thought I was going to be a field chemist, and that was it. But God had another plan, and everything fell into place so seamlessly that you knew it was Him. I didn't know it was Him at the time, because I was fighting. I did. I fought against it, but I did become a teacher in 1995.
Way back in the 90s.
Way back in the 90s. I told everybody it should have been 94, but I played football, and that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
Right.
So I taught agriculture at my high school alma mater, replaced my mentor, yet to this day, still one of my main mentors.
What's special?
That is huge responsibility in terms of helping me become the person that I've become. So, and I'll always owe Mr. Raymond Polk a debt of gratitude that I will never be able to repay, but to repay him by the way I live and the way I've conducted myself in my career.
Yeah.
The things that he taught me, not only as my teacher, that I have now taught others, but it's just as a man.
Yeah.
And so taught there for 4 years. He gave me a break my first year, and just kind of mentioned, you need to go back to school. In year 2, it was, toward the end of year 2, it was, where are you going?
It's not up for discussion
It
anymore.
wasn't a discussion
Yeah.
anymore. So I said, okay, well, my girlfriend, then girlfriend, now wife, was still at Stephen F. Austin. So I said, well, I might as well go back there. And at the time, they had it was well before online or anything like that. But,
Yeah, it was.
they were taking the classes and doing them off-site, right? So I didn't have to go to Nacogdoches. I was able to go from Beaumont, which is where it was, to Houston. I did that once a week and started that, and started working on my master's. And pretty early on, life happened. My dad passed away, and as a young man, I was not sure how to deal with that.
Right.
So life got really, really serious for me. A couple years later, 4 years in, and things are now falling into place. I met this one person that we actually both know. We worked together with him in one of the districts. He mentioned my name to this person, and the ball started rolling. And next thing you know, I've got multiple opportunities for which to interview to come to Houston.
Right.
I didn't know which one was the right one. Thankfully, I chose the right one.
Yeah.
The right one chose me. And I became an assistant principal at the age of 26 and moved. It was truly a story of the country kid come to the big city.
I'm picturing like all sorts of images when you talk about the country boy, and
Well, I'm a country boy. I was an agriculture
you saying
teacher.
this in a suit and tie.
I say this in the same time. But yeah, I'm a country boy. I grew up in the country, grew up riding horses and, cleaning stalls and all that kind of stuff. So thought I wanted to rodeo at one time when I was little till I got bucked off a steer and landed on my head. And I was like, oh, I'm done with that.
That would do it. That would.
Going back to football. So, so we fast forward. I'm now in Houston. A year or so after that, Robin and I got married, had a kid. A few years later, so I was an assistant principal for 8 years, which now that I'm on the other side of that, I'm thankful for those 8 years. During that time, though, I was kind of resentful, actually becoming angry, because, you hear these things. Everybody's, oh, you're on the fast track. You're on the fast track. And you begin to believe that. You're young. And you begin to believe that. But then that track slows down.
Right.
And when that track slows down, you don't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with it. I just saw people that weren't assistant principals when I was, in other words, coming from behind me and getting principal's positions before me.
Pass you up.
Pass me up. And I felt like that's not right. And I was angry, and I was going to, leave the district, and I was going to go do this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden, boom, here comes God again. And I get my first school. And the great thing about that is I had this huge chip on my shoulder. That failure, people say failure is not an option. No, it was not an option. And so the successes that we had at that school with the staff that I had and was blessed with, and the students that I had, that was no fluke. That was no accident. That was all intentional. Everything was intentional. And so we often, when I see, folks from that time, they'll always say there'll never be another, Plummer Middle School. There'll never be that.
Right.
Because that was something special, really special. So we had great success there. I don't define success by test scores, accountability ratings or anything like that. That's part of it.
Right.
But that's not what we did.
Yeah, we're recognizing the importance of culture now.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And I guess I really didn't get confirmation until those kids, whom are now adults, come back and confirm the way that they greet me, the way they interact with me, they almost take care of me, is something that I never would have. And it's not to say just those kids. Actually, I go back to my first year teaching. Those kids are the same way. And they're all in their 40s now. So I did it right.
Yeah.
And the confirmation of that is them.
Yeah. We're in the business of nurturing human beings. And when you see the development happening before your eyes, that makes it all worth it. But there, in all of that, I mean, we as educators, we pour into the students. We have those moments of pride when, for me, graduation time was just the best.
Yeah.
To be able to see them walk across that stage, and you remember all the times you had to fuss at that kid, pull your pants up, or stop doing that, be on time for once, those types of conversations. And you see them walk across as mature young people, and it's a moment of pride because you helped make that happen. But behind the scenes, sometimes as educators, particularly Black male educators, it wasn't always easy for you.
Oh, no.
So,
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have that chip on my shoulder, but also I had this fear of failure.
mm-hmm. That was your motivator.
That was my motivator, right? I call it the Saban-Belichick syndrome. I don't like the Patriots, and I can't stand Alabama. But I tried to run my school and everything that I've done since then based on that concept, right? There's no excuses. There is you.
Yeah.
And you better count on you. And so we had great success there. I mean, I wanted to instill in my students this attitude where it almost seemed like they were cocky. I wanted them to believe in themselves, so much that they had no fear. One of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten was from when my students left and went to their high school principals telling me, man, you can tell your kid over any other kid that we get.
In a good way.
In a good way. In a good way. In an appreciative way.
Right.
Now, my kids didn't appreciate the fact that if I got a phone call, I'd go over to them and have a talk.
Yes.
So because of that, we were, and I say we because I've never referred to my career as my career, it's ours. My wife is also a very accomplished educator as well. And I've learned so much from her. She has been and continues to be my inspiration.
It's awesome.
And my biggest supporter, as a spouse should be. Very understanding, at least when it comes to work, and maybe not so much in other ways, but I deserve that.
Right.
So anyway, we got this. We both actually got positions of advancement, and we go, we move up north, and we went up there to set the world on fire. What I didn't realize is I was walking into another learning experience. So you can see it on you can kind of deduce that it would be that coming from where I was into what I was doing, going there to do, which is to be a principal supervisor. And maybe the greatest thing about that situation was that I had been one, and I had walked in those shoes, and it wasn't going in trying to get them to emulate what I did and who I am, but to get the best of them. So the first thing I did was I made some statements to them that I knew where I was going to make sure remained true. And then it was getting to know them. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Where are our needs? What are their needs? What are their school's needs? And then it was a huge learning experience. I'm learning the position. I'm learning the people. I'm learning the new area. Like my children are very young at that time. So it's an exciting time, but it went by so fast. 3 years later, I'm back.
Yeah.
And I've got an even bigger job at that time. I did it the same way. And then you begin to experience the things that unfortunately we sometimes experience when you've got to be.
Is that what motivated you to write this book, those experiences?
A lot of it, yeah.
Okay, tell us about that.
So the inspiration for the book came out of my dissertation study. I did a national study on African-American superintendents in urban school districts.
Okay.
Those national stories of success. And what I found in interviewing the people that were, part of my dissertation was that their stories, even though they had risen to the highest level that you can rise to in public, K-12 education, they had experienced, a lot of our experiences were the same.
Just on a bigger scale.
Just on a bigger scale. And actually, they shared their rise, and in their rise were these experiences. My co-editor, Dr. Aaron Griffin, who I will never take full credit for this book because he was so instrumental. I mean, I will say this: if it hadn't been for Aaron J. Griffin, this book would not have happened.
That's right.
And I want the world to know that I believe that.
That's awesome.
And that it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. Now, he would probably disagree, but he himself will never know what he means to it. He was kind of he allowed me to be his mentor, but not too much.
Right.
But even his story, we were in that same district at the same time. Maybe you didn't know him, but
Probably didn't.
But experiencing the same things. We were all experiencing the same things. And unfortunately, and I would say unfortunately, but it actually turned out to be very fortunate. He moved on from there. And he moved on from there to assume his first principalship. And so he overcame the fears of moving to a completely different state. He didn't go to another school district. He went to a completely different state.
Yeah.
His family, at this time, his kids were very young. His wife, an educator as well. And, accomplishing and trying to advance herself. And so they get there, he knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
It just worked his tail off. So he paid attention to, not only but the ones I paid attention to, because there's a reason why. Like, we followed the template.
Yeah. He followed the template, followed the rules.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What were the commonalities that came out of those different stories? Whether you were a Black man, leadership, whether it's principal level, superintendent level, are you hearing some of the same elements repeated?
Oh, absolutely.
What were those?
Absolutely. So, assistant principal, your butts, buses, and books. And as long as you take care of the butts, buses, and books, you're good.
You did not just stick that out loud.
I did.
Break it down for the non-educators that are listening to this.
You were capable of handling discipline, transportation, getting kids on the bus, off the bus, dealing with whatever issues, and then taking care of the textbooks. I was the textbook guy. And those are the manual parts. You take pride in it at first because, kids come to the office and they're a little leery of having
handling stuff.
They come in and they couldn't see me because where my desk was in my office, my door stayed open until I closed it. When you didn't want me to close that door, they'd come peek around the corner and ask the secretary, "Yeah, he's in here. Come on in here right now." But my bark was always,
Right.
harder than my bite. But that was it, right? As long as you did those things, we called them buses, and books.
Buses and books.
Then you were good. You if you paid attention, which I did, you would learn instruction, which is what we really should be. And when you work under a principal, it's that person's responsibility to help you grow.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in many, and you read it in the book, in many circumstances, you don't get that opportunity. As long as you take care of the things that we need you to take care of, you're good. And so it makes it difficult to advance. I got to say this. I talked to one of the older, and he said, well, you got to learn curriculum. So what did I do? I grabbed every curriculum guide, and I started trying to learn it all. And I drove myself crazy. And finally, I got a principal that said, hey, stop. You're never going to learn this. It's too much. And it's not the purpose. Here's what being a true instructional leader means. And she began to teach me.
Yes.
I worked with a curriculum assistant principal who taught me. He sat me down, took me through the whole step and process of putting together a master schedule.
Yeah.
The things you think about. And those two were very intentional about teaching me. And then here comes summer school.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be the summer school principal. Not the summer school assistant principal. You're going to be the summer school principal. And guess what they did? Do your master schedule.
Let me ask you something. When you mentioned the butts, buses, and books, it reminded me of, and it was an op-ed that was, I don't know, it's been some time since it was published, basically saying that we over-index to Black males that are in education to handle discipline. That whether it's elementary level, whatever level, that when there's a problem to be handled discipline-wise, that's when we bring the Black guy in. Was that your experience as well? Why is that, you think?
Well, I want to believe, so I always want to believe the positive. And the reality was I'll speak for myself, but I had established relationships with kids. I had established a rapport. I think kids trusted me, even though they kind of feared me. Yeah, he's going to rain all over me, but he's not going to kill me, right? My approach has always been and continues to be, treat that child as if they're your child. And we, as Black professionals, male professionals, that's how we operate.
Right.
Like fathers and our big brothers at a minimum.
At a minimum, yeah, I agree.
And so that's easily recognizable. And so that's a benefit, right? And you'd be kind of not smart to not take advantage of that benefit.
Okay.
But then the other side of that is we don't believe you can do the other stuff.
Right. The instruction, the curriculum.
Right? And so, and then, in education, we got all these buzzwords, right? Differentiate instruction. Can you tell me what that means? I know you can.
I know I can.
But my point is...
And ask me again if it's something that you can do easily every day. It is probably the hardest part.
It is not. But I will say this, to be a truly effective educator, the one thing, and I used to tell my teachers this all the time, I can teach you how to plan. I can teach you how to drill down and disaggregate data. I can teach you all of those things. What I can't teach you and will never be able to teach you, I can't teach your heart to care. I can preach all day long about empathy over sympathy. This world is not our kid, don't need our kid. They don't need us to feel sorry for them. They need us to understand their circumstances.
Right.
And to do that, we have to understand to help them transcend their circumstances.
Absolutely.
To see that there is
absolutely
a future for you. That you don't have to be pigeonholed at just this. If this is what you want to do, great. I'm going to do everything I can to help you be great at that. But understand this, you, young lady or young man, can do anything in this world you want to. And we hear that all the time, but it's so passé.
It is.
Right?
Right.
But when you take and you put real teeth to that, and you actually work that with them, and guide them, lead them, push them in that path, and they find their footing, it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
So, I mean, that, I will believe that all day long, but I know that you gained an education as well through your journey, through the career path that you took. And There were some things that I question, now in hindsight. A lot of the lessons that are talked about, the examples that are in this book, your own experiences are also reflected through these stories. Anything you would have done differently along that path?
Not a thing.
Okay.
Not a thing. Now that I'm on the other side of it, and I can look and see, I see why. I see why everything that happened. I see why everything that happened and the reason it happened. And I'm thankful for that because all of those things, this is the result. And I will tell you this, there were people that interjected along the way that I would never be able to thank them enough. I'm gonna say this, and this might be a little controversial.
Go for it.
I know people that are all white people of this. And I beg to differ. Because there's a lot of white people that are responsible for helping me get to the place that I've come to. A lot. Some went well out of their way to help me along the way. And I will say this too, and this is probably the even more controversial part. It's sad, but it's true. The only people that I know for a fact, I'm not saying the only ones that have done me wrong, but the only ones that I know for a fact that have done me wrong look just like you.
Okay. I can believe you, and I'm not going to discount any of them. I mean, controversial or not, it's your truth. It's your experience. It's your lived experience. So that taught you some lessons. Did it maybe make you a thicker skin to go through the rest of your journey?
Maybe the one that was the hardest. It not only taught me so many lessons, it not only thickened my skin, but it was so detrimental that it caused me detriment to myself. And you wouldn't think that it would take as much time as it took for me to be able to see it.
You didn't want to see it.
I didn't want to see it. I don't think I wanted to get over it. I began to realize, wait a minute. Yes, this can happen to you. Something you never thought could happen to anybody. It not only can it happen, it did happen to you. But then when it changed at some point, it took some years. But when it changed, it went from happening to me to happening for me. Because see, now I see things completely different. That which I was fighting for, that which I was wanting for, working for, really isn't worth having.
Not worth having.
Let me tell you why. Because to not only attain, but to maintain that, there's a certain part of you that you have to give up, that you have to set aside.
Yeah.
And you have to endure. And at this point in my life, I'm not willing to do that.
I can definitely hear that message because I've had many conversations where, and again, controversial possibly, where I feel like there is an expectation of self-sacrifice within the education profession. And there are people that are going to hear this that are not educators that are going to be like, hey, you knew what you were signing up for.
No, you didn't.
You knew that you were going to have to put somebody in front of your own needs. And to a point, yes, like I said, we were in the business of nurturing human beings, bringing them to us. They land on your doorstep, they land in your classroom in any condition. And your job is to build that human being up to go out into the world and be a productive citizen, to be a respectful, loving person, somebody that is able to stand independently on their own. But if you, as the educator or as the educational leader, are having a tough time, you're expected to put all of that aside. You're not able to say out loud, hey, I'm having a hard day. I can't do this right now. Or I need support from somebody. Those conversations just are not allowed to happen. And I imagine the additional layer of being a Black male in a white female-dominated profession probably comes with its own realizations at many points.
It hurts.
Yeah.
But you again, I was blessed. There were always, you don't need a lot.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I would suggest if you think you have a lot, you got problems.
Mm-hmm.
But there were even people on my staff. See, I was just the leader, which meant that I was responsible. That's the way I took it. I wasn't the boss.
Mm-hmm.
People come in, hey, boss, don't call me that.
Yeah.
I don't call nobody else that. I got one boss. And his boss is, I got people that supervise my position.
They supervise
but
your
you
work.
ain't my boss. Let's
They
get that
supervise your
straight.
work. That's it.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to tell them all the time, I said, look, when things go well, it's us.
Mm-hmm.
When things go wrong, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times that they got to see that in reality, in real life.
Yeah.
He's going to take this. And I brought up Belichick and Saban earlier. I never cut it off.
Mm.
The difference was they rich. They can actually go take a little trip and, go do whatever they do, which nobody really knows what they do.
Mm-hmm.
29 years active, 33 years in total, 2 vacations.
In all that time.
No passport, never been out the country. Only been to a handful of states. Now, does that to say every year I didn't take some time off? Yeah, I took time off. But I didn't do anything. I didn't relax. I sat at home trying to figure out, okay, what's next?
Figure out somebody else's problems too.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you, so, you've got all of this experience, you have these stories that you're curating and you pour it into the book, but behind the scenes, this book is not new. This was a book that you actually published a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So why didn't there become a bigger effort to promote it, to promote yourself to tell this story? Do you think you're holding on to some of that mentality of educators, in the altruism, this is a story that needs to be heard.
Yeah.
This is a book that a lot of young educators need to read, but why not go out and tell everybody about it?
I'm thankful. I'm actually happy that you asked that question because I don't have an answer for it. I actually feel rather bad about it. Certainly not ashamed of it. I'm quite proud of the work.
Heck yeah, you should be
Certainly
proud.
the 35 individuals that contributed. I'm proud of all of them. The best I can tell you is that I've just been, trying to be the best Chuck that I can be the best dad that I can be. Thankfully, my oldest daughter graduated from college a few weeks ago. And
Congrats.
thank you. And I'm super proud. I tell people all the time, I've had some titles, but the one that matters to me, the only one that matters to me, is daddy. And so my girls are my everything. And I never saw myself as Dr. Carrier, never dreamed that would happen, literally never thought about that.
Yeah.
Honestly, never wanted to be a principal, never wanted to be anything that I've been since then. I just wanted to leave, coming out of high school. Before I came out of high school, my junior year, the assistant principal calls me in his office, and he was a Black man. And the mentor, the teacher that I told you about, is also a Black man. And I think the two of them were probably the greatest reason I went to college. that principal called me in, and it's kind of crazy, right? Because when you're in the country, you do everything. I played football, was in the band and the FFA and all of that, and all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we were at school for summer band. He calls me in. He said, "Hey, you want to go to school?" And I said, "Yeah, but," and when I said the but, he stopped me. And he said, "I didn't ask you all that." He already knew. He knew we didn't have money. He knew that, it would be, I didn't have any idea of what I needed to do. I honestly, and this is no disrespect to whomever the counselor was at the time, but I don't even remember us having one. Nobody talked to me about going to college. Akilah, I didn't even know that I was ranked in the top quarter of my class until I got inducted to the National Honor Society, and I heard somebody say, "How did he get it?"
Okay.
Right?
I have so many thoughts.
So it wasn't even about that.
Yeah.
I'm from Beaumont, Texas. And in Beaumont, Texas, you get out, you don't come back. But your plan is to get out, get over to the refinery and make a whole bunch of money and live your life. And that's what my plan was.
Yeah.
But they changed that.
Your trajectory changed
My trajectory
from that conversation.
From that conversation.
Yeah.
He said, "Come back tomorrow." And this was before the internet, all this stuff. He had college catalogs, he had financial aid papers, he had all this stuff. He helped me fill it all out. I only applied to 3 schools. I got into all 3 schools, and I didn't know which one I was going to go to. So I said, okay, whoever replies first is where I'm going.
Yeah.
Now, one didn't ever have a chance because it was at home. I wasn't staying home since I now have an opportunity to get out.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's how I ended up at Stephen F. Austin. The FFA, because I'd been on both campuses or multiple campuses, and so I won't mention the other schools. Although my father-in-law would love it. When you see it, he gonna know who we talking about. My brother will know who we talking about. But your husband will know who we're talking about. So, I went there, and my high school football coach, there's so many people, and I don't want to diminish what all of them did for me. Right? My high school football coach my middle school football coach, we still talk.
Yeah. I'm hearing you mention these different names. So you've got the one teacher, the mentor, you've got your football coaches, whatever. All of these individuals that were able to, number one, love on you just in your formative years, introduce you to a path that you did not even consider. And that was just one story, your story. And now you've moved up in education as a leader, and you're able to have that impact exponentially amongst so many individuals, whether they're students or if they're teachers, if they're campus leaders under your supervision. But even with pouring all of that into those folks, you now have the book that could possibly reach an audience that will never know you in real life.
And that's the goal.
Awesome.
That's the goal. Awesome. Look, I've got former campus leaders that are now school superintendents, large district superintendents. I'm very proud of them. Not envious. Somebody said, "Well, you never got there." No, I didn't. But there's reasons for that. And I believe part of it is that's not where God wants me to be.
That's right. Yeah.
Because if that's where I was supposed to be, I would have been there. I've always said this. I had and again, I was a young assistant principal. But I was wise enough to know, don't you go in there acting like you know anything.
Yeah.
And some of these people have been doing this long as you've been alive.
We all have that story in the back of our heads. We've got to be perfect.
And when I was a teacher, I had the benefit of the teachers that taught me, raised me. When I was a young assistant principal, I had the benefit of teachers that had been there, seeing that. We were here when you got here. We're gonna be here when you're gone. Right. But they didn't treat me that way. And I listened. One of the greatest things that I've ever done was listen to my elders. Not just the rules and do this, do that. But when they start sharing with you and when they start pouring into you, you should just be a sponge.
Yeah.
Just soak it all up. It'll make sense one day. even when you think it makes sense right now, it actually means something else,
Right.
right? And I had this one teacher ask me, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to have the greatest impact on as many people as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And at that time, you know what? That meant being a good assistant principal. And then I had another principal around my age who saw something in me. He pulls me in and starts grooming me. He's still a principal. Probably 10 years past the time he should be,
Right.
but he's still effective and he still loves it. And then that changed to, well, as principal of the school. And then it changed to, well, I want to be a superintendent. Got some 2.7 certification, all this other stuff. Got the doctorate. And it was when I got that I realized, wait a minute, your impact is not going to be limited to a school district. Because no matter how large, it could be the largest school district in the world, but it's still limited. You're still limited on the lives that you can impact.
Right.
And you have, and the further you get away from a classroom, so from classroom teacher to assistant principal to a principal supervisor, ultimately the superintendent, you get, look how many layers are between you.
Absolutely.
You don't get to truly affect those lives in a direct way that you did when you were with them day to day. Right? And so now to do that, you have to be a lot more intentional. And I've done that. I've walked in, I was an assistant superintendent, I'm walking in school, here come the kids. They want to do one or two things. They turn tail and run, or they'd run to me. The ones that turn tail and run knew they were about to get it. Comb your hair, pull your pants up. They're, the things that the ones that, and the ones that ran to me, they got that too.
I hear you.
But they wanted it. But now what this does is truly give me an opportunity. This gives me an opportunity.
The bigger stage.
And that's it.
A bigger microphone, literally.
This, to go back to your original question, I didn't do this for fortune or fame or notoriety or anything.
Who's the message for?
The message is for everybody. It is not just for educators. And that's what the publisher was able, when we pitched the idea to him, it's like, you know what, this crosses races, it crosses genres, it crosses generations. If you really look at the stories and the struggles and the triumphs and all of it happens everywhere. Fighting the good fight is really just fighting the good fight of life. Right. The good work is whatever you do. And if the work that you're doing is intended to impact lives, then that's the good fight. So it doesn't have to be in education. Not everybody's meant to be an educator. As a matter of fact, it kind of irritates me when people just all of a sudden think they can just walk in and be an educator. Hey, we worked our tails off.
We worked our tails off. We went through same thing, all the degrees, all the certifications. You follow all the rules just to get in the door.
Yeah.
Just to get in the door. So yeah, I can totally agree with that. But you're at a stage now where you've got the book and maybe gonna get your second win to be able to make sure that this is showcased and put into the hands of the people that need to receive that message.
Yeah, I'm getting the first win.
Yeah.
I'm getting the first win.
First win.
I hope I get a second win sometime. But I'm getting the first win. I got to get that off the ground.
Yeah.
But oh my God, he just keeps giving me and putting people either reinserting in my life or inserting for the first time and ideas and things. I can see things that I couldn't. You know that song, I can see clearly now. I can see clearly now.
Yeah.
And I can see that that this is real. This is a real probability. Let's say possibility. It's a probability. This is going to happen. But it's only going to happen if I do what I need to do.
Let me ask you, so you talked about humble upbringings, country boy, turned educator, educational leader, and now published author. So what does the next pivot look like for you?
Well, so I do want to, I had the opportunity a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago actually, I've been on a few podcasts. One in particular, like I Isaiah Drone just kept coming back to me. I was like, man, was I that good? It was all right, you know. And I learned. It was a learning experience for me. Yeah, I think it was beneficial to his listeners. But for me, it was learning how to be myself in that space. Because there were people that were on, I mean, it was people on podcasts that I consider to be much smarter than I. And so I got to keep up with them, right? Because I'm Dr. Isaac Carrier. I got to keep up. But I'm not being myself.
Right.
I'm not being authentic. I'm trying to sound like I'm somebody. I'm not just being myself. But I find when I'm just being myself, there's no other like me.
There's no other
And that sounds
Carrier.
That sounds bad, but it's the truth.
But you had to live all of these different experiences to get to that point in your life confidently to say, wait a second, I know who I am. I know that I'm unique, and my unique voice needs to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Takes a lot to get you there, though.
Took a lot of people. You know, I can start with my dissertation chair, Dr. Normella Carter. I love the woman like never before. All these people could see in me what I could not see in myself. And the difference was they would not allow me to not work towards being able to see it. But my mama is still the smartest person I've ever known. My mama is the reason why I'm the humble person that I am. Right? I don't believe in elitism. I don't believe in all that. Now, when I was young, I wanted to be this great star football player, and I wanted to be on TV, and just like every kid. And I grew up.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, what if you get all of that? Are you still going to be the same person?
Right.
Does that define you?
Right.
Now I've reached the second half of my life. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know how long that's going to be. I just know I got more behind me than I got in front of me. And I know I did the first half right.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what does that next chapter look like for you?
Oh my gosh, it means freedom. I'm free. That's number one. It means finally taking my wife on a honeymoon. It means being an even better father, hopefully a grandfather one day.
One day.
It means being a better friend, a better brother, being available. It means doing things like this, starting my own podcast. I did one for the first time as a host, loved it. Everybody's like, are you natural at this? It's just your first time? Yeah, it's my first time.
Excellent.
I'm not saying it was great, don't get me wrong, but I felt comfortable. I felt like I can do this.
Yeah.
And so, years ago, I didn't know that it was in the making. Even today, when you and Brian saw me, hey, Pastor. And so there's a story behind that. And I mean, this is no lie. And I hope we got time to share this little one. I'll leave out the unnecessary details. My wife is going to hate this when she sees it, but I used to actually go to 7-Eleven around the corner from my office for lunch.
Oh, my goodness, okay.
And a really, really, really good friend of mine, who is now passed on, Chris Kyle, did the same thing. So we shared that in common, even though we weren't in the same place. And so his wife and my wife are best friends, and so we, we're the husbands, right? And he and I got to be very, very close, but that's what we did. So on one of my daily 7-Eleven lunch runs, I pull up at the 7-Eleven, and there's a police officer and a homeless man talking. Now, the police officer wasn't hassling the man. You could tell they knew each other. They were having a conversation. So I go into the store, come out. Police officer is gone when I come out. And the homeless man says, excuse me, young man. He got my attention when he started talking, and then he says, I don't mean no disrespect, but are you a pastor? I said, well, what would give you that impression? He said, well, the way you look, the way you dress, the way you sound. You're not judging me. We're sitting there having a conversation. And I said, well, I guess you could say I am. but my pulpit is a schoolhouse. I don't think you want me to step in an actual church on the pulpit because it might blow up. And then I've had others, right? I'll save you the details, but and so I do plan to launch a podcast
We heard
around
it
that theme.
here.
I don't know if I've already said it. I'm not gonna say it again because I kind of want it to be a surprise.
Okay.
But the title is fitting for me. It does have a pastoral effect.
I like it.
But it is something that I very much look forward to doing. I'm learning now. I'm learning as much as I can about the technical side of things, because whatever I put out, no matter when I was a teacher or any other position I've ever had, I want it to be quality. And I'm not judging anybody else's work. I applaud everyone's work. But there's a standard that I have for myself that I want to, I want to live up to. When I saw your podcast, I was like, oh my God, that's it. And Akilah's doing it. Like, I can talk to her. And I know she'll share it with me, and so.
Hey, and she'll have me on as a guest.
I didn't think you would. I didn't know you would, but I'm thankful that you did.
I'm glad you're here. But I will tell you one thing. I want to go back to a comment that you made that when you did whatever the first iteration of it was, you said, oh, well, it wasn't that good. Sure. Probably wasn't up to the standards that you envisioned, but one message that I want to make sure that we all internalize is that we have to be the beginner in order to take that new adventure, that first step into whatever the new season is going to be. You didn't go through every single one of your experiences completely polished and sure-footed on the very first step.
No.
You had to just make the decision, first of all, this is where I'm going, and you probably wobbled a little bit along the way, but eventually you stood up a little straighter, you became a little more confident, and you mastered whatever that arena was at the moment. So I do want to encourage you.
Yeah, thank you.
If this is something that you want to do, and somebody else actually gave this advice to me, regardless of how good, how widely loved, or whatever it is, you do it for yourself, get joy out of it, and just be able to say, at whatever point later in life, I'm glad I took the chance. And that is something that I think about all the time because I'm doing stuff terrified in this season of life. A lot of things that are fun, a lot of things that I sit back and I just do it for the joy of it. But then there are things like this, like right now, we're having this conversation. I don't know who's going to listen to it. I don't know who's going to look at your book and say, yes, that's the message that I needed to hear. But did I get some growth out of it? Did I have that moment where I sit back satisfied and say, thank goodness I took that step? And that's what I hope for you.
So this is the Bernie Mac word. See, America, this is what a friend looks like. This is what a leader looks like. This is what a child of God looks like. This is what a sister looks like. And thank you. Thank you. Not only for setting the example that the world can watch, that I saw, but giving me the opportunity to be here, but just continuing all these years that we've known each other, continuing to be that sister friend and inspiration to me.
Always.
I hope the world gives themselves the benefit of not only watching your podcast, but learning from you, because you have so much to give. You've given a lot.
Hey, as do you.
But you got so much more, and we both do.
Yeah.
And now I see that as our responsibility. I think whatever God gives us, if we fail to share that with the world, we might as well go and just commit a different sin.
Right.
Because that's exactly what it is.
Absolutely.
And so now I'm at a point in my life, I thought we were talking earlier, and I said, I'm free.
Totally free.
That means I have no fear. I'm not afraid of anything. The things that used to keep me up at night don't keep me up at night. Worrying about what this person thinks or what that person thinks, or am I going to get into it? Somebody said to me, you're going to get in trouble. With who?
Exactly.
There's only one person.
Who gonna check me, boo?
There's only one person that I can get in trouble with. That's my wife.
Yeah.
Because that's my partner. That's really it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can tell me anything you want to tell me. I don't have to listen. Now, they might be hard-headed, but my point is, so much of what I've done in so long in the situations that I was in was to prevent any type of repercussion. I don't worry about those things. And there was a value in that because it actually kept you in a straight,
Kept you controllable.
Exactly. So it wasn't a bad thing.
No.
But you do reach that point where you understand why when we were younger, older people would say stuff and you would be wondering, did they really mean to say that? Yeah, they meant to say it.
Yeah.
They didn't mean to offend you. How you take what they say, that's on you.
It is 100% on you. I do want to take a moment with everything that we've talked about, all the lessons that you have learned and still are teaching with the book. And even though it is something that you maybe have not showcased in the past, you are now exposed. There are going to be people that want to know how to get in contact with you, people that are saying, hey, I need to talk to this person. I need to find out where can I get the book. Let them know, number one, where they can get the book and how they can get to work with you.
Okay. So to get the book is real simple. Amazon.
Amazon is everywhere.
It's Amazon. $27.95 on Amazon. It's even a Kindle version.
Okay.
I think it's $9.99. So go to Amazon, look up Fighting a Good Fight. You can actually put Isaac Carrier in there. And that comes up.
Dr. Isaac Carrier.
Now, my cohort, Aaron Giffin, he gets the author credit because he has multiple books. This is my first and only. Not my last, just my first.
Not your last.
But Amazon.com, it'll get to you in 2 to 3 days. I will be having some book signings. If you're local,
okay.
I will have that advertised. I'm going to ask friends like you to
Absolutely.
help get that word out. And if you'd like to have your book signed, just come and I'll sign it. I'll have some copies there to sell and sign. But it's just real simple. Amazon.
Absolutely.
Amazon.
How do they get in touch with you?
So right now, I'm building the website. I'm building I got so many working parts trying to come together at one time. The best way to reach me at this point is at my current consulting email address, which we mentioned earlier. But so I do consulting, and I certainly want to see myself doing motivational speaking and those type of things as well. It's actually really what I want to do. But Carrier Consultants 02 at Gmail. Okay. That will change, but right now it's Carrier Consultants 02 at Gmail. If you send me an email there, I will respond. We'll connect that way, and then we will take it from there.
Absolutely. Okay. Y'all heard it here. If this is somebody that you want to continue to teach, whether it is on a in-person level, if it is by a virtual level, whatever it is, we now have someone that is a very rich educator that has a lot of lessons to carry on and share with others. They heard it here first, that you are willing to go to the next level to continue to share those gifts. So I appreciate you being here, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.